Shabba had been feeling a sense of freedom ever since he left the European woman behind, wandering back to the heart of his people in the Hadzabe village. Life had returned to its simple rhythms, the crackling fire at night, the hunt during the day, and the unspoken connection to his ancestors who lived on through every tree, every rock, and every star above. But just as he was beginning to feel at peace, something unexpected happened. One morning, a familiar figure appeared at the edge of the village. It was his ex-wife, Kazi. Shabba hadn't seen her in years, and though they had parted ways, there had always been a part of him that wondered what might have been. Kazi had been one of the most respected women in the village. She was strong, wise, and beautiful in a way that no one could ignore. But things had changed between them. There were arguments, misunderstandings, and eventually, silence. But now, there she was, walking toward Shabba's fire with an air of determination. Shabba, Kazi called, her voice softer than he remembered. Shabba looked up from the fire, squinting at the woman who had once shared everything with him. She had aged, but there was something still familiar about her, the curve of her smile, the way she carried herself. "What do you want, Kazi?" he asked, his voice flat. He had his reasons for leaving, and he wasn't sure if he was ready to reopen old wounds. "I've heard about you," she said, her eyes searching his face. "I heard about your new European woman." Shabba frowned. "She's gone," he said quickly. "Not here anymore." Kazi didn't seem fazed by that, though. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I came back because I want to fix things, Shabba. I've been thinking a lot about us, about what we had. I made mistakes, I know that. I miss you, Shabba." Shabba was silent for a moment, trying to absorb her words. It wasn't that he didn't care for Kazi, it was just that so much had happened between them. But now, standing there with her, he couldn't deny the old feelings stirring inside him. "You left me, Kazi. You chose a different path. Now you want to come back?" "I was wrong," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I've spent time thinking about it. And when I heard that you had someone else, someone different, from far away, I realized that maybe I still have a chance. Maybe I can make things right." Shabba looked at her for a long time, his mind racing. Then, almost as if to distract himself, he stood up and began gathering wood for the fire. "You can't just come back like nothing happened," he muttered. "I know," Kazi replied. "But I'm here, Shabba. I'm willing to try." Just as they were talking, one of Shabba's friends approached with something wrapped in cloth. It was a gift, spaghetti, of all things. Shabba raised an eyebrow. "What's this?" he asked. "This came for you," his friend said, "from the European woman you were with. She sent it for you." Shabba paused. He had forgotten about her, but now her gesture pulled at something inside him. He didn't want the food, but his friend didn't hesitate to unwrap the spaghetti and begin eating it right away. Kazi watched them both, her expression unreadable. "Why did you eat it?" Kazi asked. Shabba's friend shrugged. "She's not here. You don't want it, so I'll take it." Kazi's eyes flicked between them, a look of confusion on her face. She had heard stories of Shabba's new woman, how she had seemed to want to change Shabba, to force him into the world of cities and hotels, but now it seemed that she had left. And all that was left was a plate of spaghetti. Shabba couldn't help but chuckle. "She sent food. What am I supposed to do with it?" His friend finished the last of the noodles, wiping his mouth. "What's the difference? Spaghetti is food. We're all hungry." Kazi's eyes darkened. "So, this European woman sends food, and you just eat it?" Shabba looked at her, and then shrugged. "It's just food, Kazi. It means nothing. But Kazi wasn't convinced. She had come back to make things right, but seeing this strange exchange left a bitter taste in her mouth. She had never understood Shabba's ways, and even now, she was struggling to grasp the life he had chosen for himself. He didn't care about the things she thought mattered, and that was the real reason they had parted. "I thought you'd want to know where you stand with me," Kazi said, her voice quieter now. "But you're not the same man I left behind." "No," Shabba said, his voice firm. "I'm not." At that moment, a ripple of movement passed through the village. People were starting to gather, looking around as if they were searching for someone. Shabba's friend whispered something, and a few others nodded. It was clear that everyone was looking for Shabba. "Shabba, where have you been?" one of the men asked as he approached. "Everyone is looking for you." "Why?" Shabba asked, confused. "They say you've gone missing," the man explained. "They think you're lost." Kazi glanced around, sensing the rising tension. The village was concerned. Shabba's sudden disappearance had caused more of a stir than she had anticipated. "I'm not lost," Shabba replied, his voice growing stronger. "I'm right here. And I've made my choices." But as the villagers continued to search, Shabba's thoughts turned inward. Kazi had come back looking to fix things, but it seemed like something inside him had already been fixed. He was no longer the man she had known. Maybe, just maybe, he was better off alone, doing things his way. The laughter of the villagers echoed in the background, but Kazi stood there silently, realizing that no matter how much she missed Shabba, he had already moved on. The journey she had hoped to take with him had ended long ago. The next morning, the sun rose slowly over the horizon, casting a golden light on the Hadzabe village. The air was thick with the sounds of the morning, birds calling, the rustling of the trees, and the crackle of firewood. But for Shabba, the world felt quieter than usual. He sat by the fire, staring into the embers, lost in thought. It had been a few days since the European woman had left, and despite the bravado he had shown when she first departed, Shabba couldn't shake the emptiness inside. He had tried to convince himself that he didn't need her, that he was better off without the complications of her world, her clothes, her hotels, her foreign ways. But now, as he sat there, he realized something: he missed her. He missed her laugh, the way she spoke in broken Swahili, and the way she looked at him with a mix of wonder and curiosity. Shabba shook his head, trying to clear the thoughts from his mind. The sun was up, and the others were beginning their daily routines. He had to focus. He had to hunt. But the hunt felt pointless today. His arrows seemed to miss their mark more than usual, and the animals he tracked always seemed to stay just out of reach. The world around him, so familiar and comforting, now seemed distant, like a dream fading from his mind. As he walked back to the camp, he saw Kazi sitting by the fire, watching him with those familiar eyes. He knew she was still hoping for something between them, something he wasn't sure he could give. He didn't want to hurt her, but he couldn't deny that his heart wasn't in it. Kazi noticed his mood and approached him slowly, her eyes soft with understanding. "Shabba, what's wrong?" she asked quietly. "You've been quiet all day." Shabba turned to her, forcing a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I don't know," he said, the words coming out more tired than he meant them to. "Just feeling strange." Kazi sat beside him, not pushing for more. She knew Shabba well enough to know when to give him space. She had always admired his independence, his strength, and the way he lived so fully in the moment. But today, he seemed like a man pulled between two worlds, neither of which he could truly belong to. "You miss her, don't you?" Kazi asked, her voice gentle. Shabba looked at her, surprised by the insight in her words. "I don't know," he muttered. "I thought I didn't. I thought I was happy here." "You're not happy," Kazi said, almost to herself. "You can't hide it." Shabba exhaled deeply, his eyes heavy with the weight of his own thoughts. "I didn't want her to leave," he confessed, the words almost foreign to him. "I didn't want her world, but I miss her. I miss the way she looked at me, like I was something new, something important to her. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Kazi was silent for a moment, taking in his words. She had known Shabba for years, and she had never seen him so vulnerable, so unsure. But she also knew that this was a part of him, a part that was rare. Kazi was silent for a moment, taking in his words. She had known Shabba for years, and she had never seen him so vulnerable, so unsure. But she also knew that this was a part of him, a part that was rarely seen. "You're a man of the wild, Shabba," Kazi said softly. "You're free, you live by your own rules. But even the wild needs something to hold on to sometimes." Shabba stared at the fire, unsure how to respond. The truth was, he had always prided himself on his independence, his ability to live without needing anyone. But now, with the European woman gone, he realized how much he had let her into his heart, even without meaning to. She had shown him a different way of life, a way that wasn't tied to the earth and the hunt, but to something softer, something human. But was it worth pursuing? Should he go after her? Kazi's voice broke from his thoughts. "If you want her back, go. Don't let pride or fear stop you." Shabba looked at her, surprised. "What do you mean?" "You know what I mean," Kazi replied. "I came back because I thought I could fix things with you, but I see now you're not the same man I knew. You're different, Shabba. And I think you've found something else. If you want her, go. Don't wait for the world to make sense." Shabba's mind raced. He had always been a man of action, of instinct, but now, for the first time, he wasn't sure what to do. Kazi was right, he had changed. The question was, had he changed enough to give up the simplicity of his life for the complexity of hers? That night, as the village settled into sleep, Shabba sat outside his hut, looking up at the stars. The cool night air brushed against his skin, and for a brief moment, he could almost feel her presence beside him, her laugh, her smile, her questions about his world. She had come into his life so suddenly, and now she was gone. He had lived his life for so long without needing anyone. But now, the space she left behind felt too large to ignore.